it's clearly a very important meeting, and if it were to go badly wrong, obviously that would have negative consequences. But equally, I think we should avoid overloading any individual moment with undue significance. This is a long-term set of issues that we're dealing with. It is an ongoing relationship with the United States, but clearly there is a great importance in getting this right today and getting this discussion and this relationship off on a positive footing. That is really important.
Simon Fraser, welcome as always to the programme.
Thank you.
I want to ask you then, first of all, tell me, I mean, are you feeling optimistic? Do you feel even confidence on the Prime Minister's behalf about this meeting?
Well, I do, generally speaking, because I think they've prepared the ground well with the position they've taken on Ukraine and, of course, with the announcement on defence spending. And I'm sure a lot of preparation has gone into it. So clearly, they're going with the expectation that they can engage effectively. But, of course, when you're dealing with Donald Trump, you never know what's going to come at you from left field. And there's obviously a risk factor there. So we can't take anything for granted. But I'm sure they've minimized the risk as far as they can.
Right. And when you tell me you're confident of what? What do you mean by that?
Well, that there will be a constructive discussion. Now, clearly, the United Kingdom government, the British government, doesn't agree with everything that Donald Trump is doing and is saying, and they've made that clear. But they've also taken the position that it's necessary for them to try to engage and to deal with Donald Trump and the US administration effectively. And I think that's the right position to take because we're hugely invested in this relationship with America. And we have at many levels, we have many interests engaged. So that's the thing to do. So the idea is to try to get into the discussion with Donald Trump, both on the economic issues, the tariff issues, but of course, primarily and above all now on the questions relating to Ukraine and European security.
Yeah. I'm a non-aligned journalist, and you were certainly in party terms a non-aligned diplomat, no doubt in favour of Britain. I feel quite nervous on Keir Starmer's behalf. Do you?
I think it's reasonable to fear to experience a degree of nerves because, as people have been pointing out, you never quite know when you get to this press conference what's going to happen and what's going to be said, and it's clearly a very important moment in Keir Starmer's the early days of his prime ministership, which will set the tone for a critical relationship for the years ahead. So yes, it's reasonable and sensible to feel some nerves about it. But as I say, we have to be confident. We have to go in with a clear view of what British national interests are and how they can be developed and worked alongside the positions that this administration has taken, even if, as is clearly the case, we don't agree with the administration on all the issues, far from it.
It's not overstating it, is it, to say this could be a defining moment, not just for Keir Starmer and his premiership, but for Britain in the world that it is today. It may not, but it could be.
It could be. It's clearly a very important meeting, and if it were to go badly wrong, obviously that would have negative consequences. But equally, I think we should avoid overloading any individual moment with undue significance. This is a long-term set of issues that we're dealing with. It is an ongoing relationship with the United States, but clearly there is a great importance in getting this right today and getting this discussion and this relationship off on a positive footing. That is really important.
Well, President Trump, as we know, has now repeatedly rejected the idea of a US security guarantee, physical security guarantee, beyond the presence of US mineral mining interests.
Yeah.
What would that guarantee be worth?
Well, he has said that he's not going to give one, or at least he said not beyond very much. But I think the key point for us is if we are going to be prepared alongside perhaps the French and others to put troops on the ground to help ensure the ongoing implementation of a peace agreement in Ukraine, and it has to be an agreement that we have confidence in, then I think it is not only desirable, but indeed necessary that would be backed by the United States, because that is the reality of military power in the world that we live in. So we are going to have to pursue that. And the Prime Minister has made absolutely clear that what he calls a backstop from the United States is essential. In my view, that has to go beyond just having American civilians in the ground dealing with the issues around the agreement on mineral extraction,
Mm.
there has to be some sort of security component to it, because the United States has capabilities and systems which the rest of us simply do not have on the same scale.
Right. Look, it may be necessary, it may be vital to have some sort of physical guarantee from America. But as I say, Donald Trump shows absolutely no sign of yielding to that argument. How is his mind to be changed then?
Well, I mean, this is a negotiation. Donald Trump says a lot of things, and then in the process of negotiation, he comes round, and you see there are numerous instances of that. So I think we've got to be confident. We've got to set out the facts. We've got to get into a detailed discussion, not only about the headlines and slogans around the agreement, but about what it would actually mean, how it would be implemented on the ground, how it would be supported economically and in security terms, and engage with the United States system on that. I'm pretty confident that we can do that, and that has to be the objective.
Yeah, it is a basic tactic to offer Donald Trump, well, a route to concessions and make them look like a win for Donald Trump. I mean, that is what David Cameron is said to have done when he met Donald Trump in Florida before the election.
Yeah, and indeed, I think that is an approach which has been used by many others. I mean, Donald Trump. I think what the British government is saying to Trump is, look, we don't agree with you on some of the things you're saying about the origins of this war and the nature of the Zelensky government and so forth. But if you want to pursue a ceasefire and a peace agreement, we think that's a good thing, and we want to work with you on it, and we want to support that. And of course, implicit in that is that the United States, and Donald Trump in particular, will take credit if it is achieved.
Yeah, I mean, the president is said, isn't he, to be an Anglophile. He's of Scottish ancestry. He's said to be a fan of royalty. Do you think that could be very useful?
Well, I think that there'll be another number of other bilateral issues on the table beyond the ones that we've been talking about relating to Ukraine.
Hmm.
And part of that will be the economic relationship and the people to people relationship. And yes, clearly, many people say, and I think it's true, that Donald Trump likes the pomp and ceremony of the royal family. He really enjoyed his last state visit to the UK. And if another is to be offered, I think that would be a useful thing to do.
Hmm. Well, he's going to be invited to a state visit by the king personally, and apparently he's getting a present of tartan, using the tartan of his on his mother's side.
Well, that's the sort of thing that the British do quite well. In the sort of, it's the periphery of diplomacy, but often it works very well, because in the end, you have to remember these are also individual, people to people, interpersonal relationships. And back to your earlier point, it's very important to get off on the right foot on the interpersonal, and I think that's what Starmer needs to achieve on this visit.
Right, have you got high hopes of the influence of Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, who's now installed as our ambassador in Washington?
Well, I think Peter Mandelson's a very experienced and seasoned operator, and he'll be thinking about how to make this work. And I think, in the circumstances, he's a very good person to have helping to manage this through.
When it comes to the discussions on camera in front of the world's media, and Donald Trump almost inevitably says something which is just entirely false, would you be advising the Prime Minister to flatly contradict him in the way that Emmanuel Macron, I suppose, did?
I'll be advising the Prime Minister. I'm sure he's been advised to make sure that he manages his reactions in an appropriate way. I
What
don't
does
think,
that mean? What does that mean?
and I think if there are factual issues where we have a difference of view, then the Prime Minister has to find a way of making sure that his position is expressed, and he needs to be sort of bold about doing that, but not in a way that is overtly contradicting Donald Trump, but setting out a different point of view. That is his legitimate right, and he should do that.
Yeah. Although Emmanuel Macron did contradict Donald Trump, didn't he?
He corrected him on a point of fact.
Yeah, yeah. And well, that's a moment of peril, potentially.
Yes, I mean, Emmanuel Macron, of course, has quite long experience of dealing with Donald Trump and others. And you're right in the implication of your question, which is that Keir Starmer is less experienced in that. But I think given his sort of calm manner and his considered approach, I'm sure he'll be able to manage it.
Yeah. Look, in his time, I suppose the Prime Minister, he has sat down with murderers and terrorists, and he's won their trust. I'm not directly comparing the president to any of those, but it may be useful experience.
Well, I think he's got experience from a wide range of activities in life, and I think, as I said, one of his attributes is that he is calm, he is considered, he doesn't overreact, and he will have thought this through very carefully.
You sound quite unflappable, Simon.
I think it's good to be unflappable, and I hope he is as well.
Simon Fraser, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.